It's time. All right, we're live. What's going on, everybody? Jay here again. Welcome to the show. I need to turn on some lights. I got a little bit sidetracked today. There we go. Get a little more ambiance happening here. How y'all doing today? We are here making some coffee, answering any kind of coffee questions you might have for at least the next half hour or so. So if you're interested and want to have something to say, drop it in the comments. I got a little bit sidetracked a few moments ago because I'm here at the roastery and I'm making kimchi. I went to the Asian market the other day, and I was planning to buy kimchi, and suddenly it was like, oh, it's kind of pricey. So I was like, oh, it's kind of expensive. I might as well just buy the cabbage, the Napa cabbage, and make it my own. So right now I've been soaking it. Well, not soaking it, but I've been salting the cabbage with a little bit of water. And what that does, it kind of macerates the cabbage and breaks it down and gets it softer, and breaks down the pores, and then will allow the porridge that we're going to make to be more readily absorbed. And that porridge is going to be basically water, mochiko, a little bit of salt, a little bit more salt in the form of fish sauce, chili peppers, garlic, onions. What else we need? Green onions. And that all gets massaged in later. But that's neither here nor there. So what we're doing today is we are brewing with the Rattlewear Cupping Brewer. And if you're not familiar with this brewing device, what this is, it's supposed to be an easier way to share a coffee with other coffee tasters that mimics the cupping protocol. So within the coffee world, we normally take our coffees, put them into vessels like this, with the coffee like this, add the water, let it sit for 4 minutes, break off the crust that forms and floats, and then we use a spoon to slurp and taste the coffee. And what happens is everybody that's tasting will, pull a sample from the same cup. Some people feel that it's very unhygienic, especially with the COVID happening over the last couple of years. So Rattleware came up with this brewing device that's supposed to mimic the cupping experience while allowing you then to finish and pour samples out for everyone to taste. Now, one of the unique properties of cupping is that basically it sits there and remains relatively undisturbed. And it's just kind of a neutral way of brewing coffee, because most every way of brewing coffee, whether you're doing pour over, French press, AeroPress, or whatever, will impact the flavor in some way, much like cooking food impacts the flavor of that item. So, for example, let's say you take chicken, whether you broil it, roast it, fry it, boil it, what else do you do? Pan sear it. You can do all this and grill it. They all will have a different impact on the way the chicken tastes, but it still tastes like chicken, right? It's not going to make it taste like salmon, right? It's not changing it. So the coffee won't necessarily change dramatically. Like, it won't become a different coffee, but each brewing method will have an impact on the way the coffee ultimately tastes, right? So different aspects will be highlighted and different aspects will be diminished, and those things will change depending on the brewing method. So the idea of doing a cupping style of tasting is a neutral brewing method, and this is supposed to mimic that. So we're going to explore that right now. So this is the Rattlewear. It's about a 12-ounce brewer, and it's got this wasted, a hipped, whatever you want to call it, here. So the idea is that you're going to add the coffee, you're going to add the water, let it steep for 4 minutes, and any kind of, and of course there's going to be floaters, just like in a regular cupping. Then once we break down so you can do the break where you're going to smell the top if you want to do that. That is possible on this. But once you break the top, it is then going to encourage you to all the remaining grounds to fall into the lower chamber, where you have this plunger that can then, it fits snug enough. It doesn't stay. Like if you were to pour it, it will fall because the stainless shaft is heavier than the rubber plunger. But it's enough to make a seal. So when you're pouring it, you kind of give a little pressure on that just to make it not move, and then you can pour your coffee. So what is going to do that? I've got 24 grams of roasted. It's kind of a mildly roasted coffee here. You can see, ooh, ooh, ooh. There, it's kind of a lightly roasted coffee, really nice quality coffee. This is the Wonder Worker from Ethiopia. As you can see, my desk is a bit messy. And it's a really lovely natural processed coffee with really forward on the nose right now. I'm getting notes of strawberry, honey, a little bit of honeydew, not honeydew, but honeysuckle, the little white flower. So we're going to take that. We're going to pour this into the vessel. It's a coarsely ground because we're doing kind of a cupping thing because it's full immersion. And I'm using 24 grams because it's actually a 12-ounce cup, okay? So once it's in here, we're just going to take our hot water. And I got hot water here just off the boil. And I'm going to make sure that it gets rough and, really saturates all the coffee. I'm going to pour it to right about there. I'm also going to set a little timer for us. Oops. 4 minutes. There we go. Why does that look backwards? It doesn't normally do that. I don't know. Weird. So if you have any questions about coffee or anything like that, drop them in the comments over here. Love to hear from you. Otherwise, we're just waiting for the coffee now to finish its brew cycle. I think there's a way for me to do this picture in picture. Let me see if we can do that. Is that working? No. On. Off. Okay, I guess not. High technology just doesn't seem to work. So we've got some coffee here. It's rolling along. Let's have a look at it. Actually, why don't I zoom in a little bit more for you to see a little bit tighter? There we go. What we need to do is boost up the lighting so that we can see a little bit better. Rusty's asking, is your brew ratio on the Rattlewear almost the same for Clever? Yeah, more or less. For this particular one, I am using the same brew ratio, 2 grams for every finished ounce. However, that's a little bit different than what I would normally use for this vessel. This is a 9-ounce rocks glass. And even though it's 9 ounces, I would normally use 18, but for cupping purposes, we've been using 13 grams. So it's a little bit less in concentration than this one. However, the important thing is that it follows more of, what we use across the industry for similar sized vessels. And what's also important is that you're doing consistent amounts. Like if you're cupping multiple coffees, you want them to all have the same ratio. And if you're doing that over months and years, so you can compare the flavors of the coffees, I think that's more important than the actual brewing method. Now, why are we using 12? Why are we using 24 and 12 for this? More because that's the ratio we'd use if we were producing a regular cup of coffee. So another minute and 17 seconds to go. As you can see, I'm charging the phone. This phone is getting kind of old, and the recharging gets a little bit wonky. And here's something while we're waiting. I found this yesterday at the comic book store. I forgot that yesterday is or was Black Friday. I just don't pay attention to those kind of things. So I needed to go to the comic book store because I do have, standing subscriptions there, and I hadn't been there all fall. So I brought my niece and nephew, and they wanted to get some toys, and I found this thing, the tricorder. I believe this is a Star Trek Voyager era tricorder, and it works. Turns on. It doesn't do too much. Like all these buttons here don't really do a lot. However, these green ones, they work. That's the cool one. Like you've got some kind of, you know, you're making readings on something. Oh, there we go. Our timer is done. Excellent. So now we're going to do is that as you can see here, it's been falling, probably because I've been moving. Maybe you can't see it so much. It is falling rapidly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just take the spoon and I'm just going to stir it around. And why am I stirring around? It's because I want to give turbulence to encourage these remaining coffee grounds to settle at the bottom. We want them to settle. One day I'll get this. Right, there is going to be some at the top, and that's kind of unavoidable. What I might do is to try to skim it a little bit. I'm just using a little demi-tasse spoon. It's not the ideal spoon for this. You want to use like a soup spoon or a proper cupping spoon, and I have them here. I just didn't use one. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is we're going to take it and I'm going to pour it into this cup. Now there is some coffee grounds, as you can see, floating around. We're not going to worry too much about that. It is, and as you can see, this lighter roast produces a lighter looking elixir. And on camera, it looks more tea-like. Now, part of that is exacerbated by the fact that I have daylight shining through the window here. It's well illuminated, and it's in a glass cup. Whenever you put coffee in a glass cup, it always looks always looks lighter. Now, there is going to be some floaters in here. Let's have a look. So as you can see, even from the upper angle, it doesn't really look that. But let's have a taste. We waited 4 minutes or so. You know what I got on the nose prior to having that first sip was hints of like a citrusy, like a mandarin. Still very, very nice. Light body, because the roasting is light. Now, I do have a bit of coffee grinds stuck in my teeth. But it's light and cheery, juicy, very citrusy. But more of a mandarin, lightly tangerine type of citrusy rather than more orange or lemon. Oh yeah, that's really pleasant. Here's the interesting thing. Like one of the things we talk about a lot or people ask a lot in coffee is how old can I keep? How long can I keep the coffee? When does coffee stale? When is coffee bad? Blah 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 blah. These are all important questions, and a lot of my peers, they love to push the whole fresh seasonality aspect of coffee. How coffee is constantly dying. This is still a very enjoyable coffee. This coffee was roasted in March of 2022. We're talking 7 months ago. And honestly, when I brought it back and I got it from the roaster, who are friends of mine, I was like, I'm gonna take the bag, I'm gonna put it into like serious storage conditions, like I'm gonna deep freeze it. And be very religious about it. Well, my freezers were full at the time, so I just didn't get the chance to put it in there. And basically, this bag has been sitting around for the last 7 months, just at room temperature. Whatever the ambient temperature at the roastery at the time, whether it was 65 degrees, 50 degrees, or 90 degrees, that's where it was. And I've been drinking this bag nonstop through those entire 7 months. It's a kilo bag, by the way, so it's a bit of coffee. Now, is it the same as it is? Does it perform the same as it did in March? No, it is a bit of a different experience. Maybe the flavor's more vibrant. Maybe it was definitely more the lemony, more of an orange character to it, more berry, a little more fruit. So the time has changed the coffee, but has it changed it to the point where it's unpleasurable, unenjoyable? No, no, this is a very if you like light and juicy kind of coffees, this is still very much a light and juicy coffee. So I think it's important when you're talking about coffee freshness is not just to think about, oh, okay, it's going to be this, this, and this. It must be this time period, and then we must throw it away. Like, I think that's a bit ridiculous. What you have to do is you have to taste the coffee, and see how it's doing. I was just at a place yesterday where we're having coffee, and it wasn't bad. It was at a national chain. I went to a place called First Watch. My nieces wanted to go there, so we took them to First Watch, had breakfast there, and I was I was pleasantly surprised. Surprised in the fact that the coffee wasn't really bad. Like most of the time you go to diner type places and the coffee is defective, whether it's really, really low quality commercial that can exhibit, things like diesel and tar and just really, horrible flavors. Or you go to other places that have, not necessarily that extreme of flavor, but they'll have, other things like CBB defect. You can taste that really earthy, muddy kind of tonality to it. That tends to be a good indication of coffee berry borer, and not disease, but infestation. That hey mom, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. And so this place, First Watch, actually it did not have those defects. It was comparatively pleasant. Now, where their coffee was not necessarily to my taste, and I really didn't drink even the one full mug of their coffee, partially because I ended up with a breakfast, or I ended up with a brunch that wasn't necessarily a coffee kind of brunch, right? So if I'm getting pancakes and that kind of thing, man, I love that, right? I ended up with their chicken changa, which is this kind of like eggs and chicken and wrapped and with like a citrusy kind of, it was actually quite good. Like I was surprised how good it was and how much I enjoyed it. But anyway, but the coffee had a really baggy taste to it, like that jute bag taste, which is an indication that it's the coffee that they were using, or whoever the roaster that roast for them is using, is pretty old. I don't know if it's something that they've kept too long or they bought that way because it was cheaper. I don't know, but it wasn't it wasn't as much an experience as those places with the heavy duty commercial coffees. This one was just baggy and had that kind of weird like peanut quality, jute, manila rope kind of character to it. Not terribly bad. I mean, not terribly exciting, but not terribly bad either. Like I was actually surprised at how much I thought it was okay, not too bad. All right, so all right, I guess that's it. With this is the Rattlewear Cupping Brewer. This is how you brew with it. It's a great way to do it. So, and it's a nice way to get a more neutral tasting coffee or neutral brewed coffee that you can share with more people than just yourself, and in a more quote unquote hygienic way than compared to a standard cupping with spoons. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions about coffee, let me know in the comments below, especially if you're watching the replay. Thanks for tuning in. And we do these coffee Q&As I'm trying to do them on a more regular basis, like once a week or so. Sometimes we do a little bit more. So that's pretty much it. And if you're interested in coffee and cigars, come join us on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Ono Live channel, because we do a weekly live stream where we talk coffee and we smoke cigars, no matter where I am in the world. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope this helps. Again, if you have any questions about things, oh, there's King One Kong 2. Good to see you. Just missed you, but we'll catch the replay. Catch you Thursday. All right, see you then. And all of you, see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great one.